The point of departure that I move when one looks at the role and the place of creativity and the creatives within a society is that creatives play a prophetic role in society. Very often, and one can trace this historically, is that creatives not only imitate and capture and represent what society is expressing at any given time or responding to at any given time. Creatives also push the boundaries and in many ways communicate what those things, those reactions could lead to, what kind of future reverberations could there be to particular expressions that exist within society. So that's very much where I move from. And obviously what that does, then it raises the question around the artist or the creative within a public space, the artist and the creative within the sacred space, and sometimes I think we move between these two. We move between the artist who expresses, who invites mirroring from society and invites dialogue from a particular community. And in doing that, there's a process of valuing that takes place between the community and the artist. There's a relationship that kind of emerges out of it. And then there's at the other end of it, I suppose, is the artist or the creative as the prophet, which in many ways plays a sacred role because one needs to be able to be both within society and be outside of it. And the process very often for many artists and creatives is a lonely one. But at the same and that is necessary in order to be able to do that kind of reflective work and so on. And this is across disciplines. And in that process of or what I call the sacred process, so the movement between the public space and the sacred space, there are obviously within the creative process discontinuities and continuities. And those are the moments, I suppose, the moments of discontinuity that leads to innovation, that leads to something new and something different, which would ignite something within a public audience when it views it, and then creates a sense of, oh, this is something that is of value to us, and so on. Now, valuing for me is not only in terms of obviously the economics of it. Economics does play a role. I'm very sad, particularly the continent that I come from, that many creatives are not able to express themselves, push the boundaries, do what they are meant to do within a society because the economics of it is so poor that they cannot actually devote themselves to their world's work. But I also believe that the valuing has an interrelationship with all the other things. The fact that what gets produced, if one can use that kind of language, what gets produced ignites something within an individual. So it could be an individual piece of art, ignites something that rests within the soul of somebody who then responds to it and says, this is something that I'd really like to look at on my wall every single day of my life for the rest of my life. On the other hand, also the economics of it, with somebody saying, oh, that looks like an emerging artist, a good idea, and getting advisors to say, would this be good to have in my portfolio to increase my wealth? And so you have that kind of interrelationship between the sacred and the public all of the time within the world of within the world of the creative, and the economic and the social, the cultural values emerge out of this interaction between these two spaces. I think that there are times when, and I've looked at some of the art that has been emerging, particularly out of the African continent, and I think some of the work that is emerging for me, very often the striking stuff comes from works that emerges out of great depth. Emerges out of a very intense inner journey of the creative, looking at themselves and their identity, looking at their sense of place, within the local, within the community that has given birth to them, that has nurtured and nourished them, and then within the wider kind of global community that they've circulated or begun circulating in. And that has been a very interesting, for me anyway, it's an interesting process to see, because I have a feeling that some of the fusion work that is taking place, the kind of, and I know this has been happening for decades, the kind of exchange between different regions of the world, certainly has a role to play in the valuing of the art. I have a theory that Matisse left North Africa and he was inspired, and it changed his world, it changed the way in which he chose to see and represent the world to the rest of us. And I have a theory that the people that he left behind in North Africa were equally influenced. We still have to find the evidence of what impact he had on the communities, and that is what I'm particularly keen on seeing in terms of valuing, that we begin to see this kind of a global valuing, not necessarily dictated to by the North or by the South, but a global valuing that emerges out of a process of mutual influence, and that there's a sense of a discovery, between peoples. And I think that is going to change the way in which we operate within the creative sector anyway.